building an indie business in the center of venture capital. I am Alex Edmonds, also known as SupremeRumHam on the internet, and this is the Building an Indie Business podcast. Hello to all my listeners in France. Today I'm going to be going over how to promote a podcast with writing. So I'm going to go over the goals you should have, or that I have, with writing, how to write to promote a podcast, the benefits of using writing to promote your podcast, specifically how to promote, problems that you're going to run into, and that's about it. Okay, the goals. So the goals I have using writing to promote my podcast are getting people to see my projects, meaning that I have like a page, or I have a blog, blog.openpodcast.xyz, that I write things related to podcasting, and I also want people to see the different parts of Open Podcast when they go to my blog, or the Open Podcast blog. So I want them to see the forum mostly, and I want them to see the Telegram chat, and that way that they join the forum or the Telegram chat. My next goal is that I want people to subscribe to things. So I want them to subscribe to the Open Podcast, Community Podcast, my own podcast, BAIB, or I want them to subscribe to the Open Podcast email list. So I'll talk about that later, how I reach those two goals. So how do I write and promote Open Podcast in the same way? Okay, so the first thing I do is I summarize episodes. So lately I've been doing the BAIB episodes. As you know, as a subscriber of the podcast, I have been summarizing, I've been doing episodes on podcasting. So how to live stream your podcast episodes, how to monetize your podcast, things like that. So I summarize every episode. I listen to an episode, and I type out what I'm saying, and that's how I summarize the podcast. And I write about podcasting because I have decided that my target audience for Open Podcasts is beginning podcasters, or people thinking about podcasting. So I write basic material, hoping that people that are looking for this material will find my blog and then come join the Open Podcast community. Okay. Another thing I do in my writing is no adjectives. And the reason why I don't use adjectives is because they're a waste of space. What I mean is there's no reason to have an adjective in your writing. They don't provide much value, and without the adjective, your writing sounds the same. So I am running very fast versus I am running. The very doesn't have much value. It's still the same thing as I am running. You just added an extra word that provides no value. So to consolidate your writing and make it more likely that people are reading your stuff, you have no adjectives and make your writing shorter. Okay. So the way I treat this podcast versus writing is that the episode, the thing you're listening to right now, is a rough draft of my written content, and that's basically that I have my ideas that I'm thinking about for my writing, and then the podcast is a rough draft, and so I will add things in the writing process. I will subtract things that I don't like. Basically, what I subtract is this very specific examples that I put in the episode. Okay, the next thing that you should do in your writing is add a link to the top and the bottom. So with my goal to get people to subscribe to things and see my projects, the links help me achieve that goal. So I have a link at the top, maybe something about the podcast episode that models my article on writing, and then at the bottom I have a subscription form or a button that when you click, it'll go to the subscription form because I want people to subscribe to my stuff. Okay, let me see. I'll listen, add a link. So how do you make this blog? Great question. Okay, so the way I created my blog, blog.openpodcast.xyz, it'll be in the show notes also. I went on DigitalOcean and then I did the one-click marketplace. It's literally one click and it'll set it up. And I am using ghost.org. I've talked about this before in the blog episode. I'm using a template called Massively. I'll link to the episode in the show notes. Okay. Summarize episode. Episode is a rough draft. Listen, add links top and bottom. Okay. So the next thing I do is I add a picture to the header of the blog post to help with the promotion. So when you promote the blog post on different social media platforms, when there's like a little card that shows up with the link and it makes it expand. So by adding a header picture to the blog post, that header picture will show up as the picture with the link on social media. So by adding that header picture, it helps your blog link stand out because it won't just be a little black and white picture on social media. So when people are scrolling, it stands out more. Okay. So the final thing that I do for my blog is I fill out the blog as much as I can. I have like all my contact info or the Open Podcast contact info. Then I add the links everywhere. I fill out the profile. I have a contact page, things like that. Okay. So the benefits of writing to promote the podcast. The first benefit is it's all just one link. So you can send everyone the same link and everyone can read the blog post. This is different from podcasting where everyone has a different player or a different player that they like to listen to podcasts on. I love Overcast. Hey Marco, we're still looking for open podcast sponsors if you're interested. Okay. So with blogging, it's just one link that everyone can get and see your info or see your blog post. With a podcast, you need to give someone their Apple link, give someone their Google link, give someone their web link. It's all different links and it gets very confusing. Okay. The next benefit of writing is it broadens the potential audience. So when you have a podcast, the only audience you have really is people that are interested in audio content. But by writing, you're expanding your audience to the people that like written content. So yeah, okay. Another benefit of writing is clickable links in the blog posts. And what I mean by this is the fact that you can add a link to the middle of the blog post, and people that are interested in that link will click on it to go to that link. So this is different from podcasting, where I have to say the link is in the show notes, and people might click on it right away. They might forget and not click on it. But with blog posts, I can have a link right away, and it's great. Okay, SEO. Blog posts are indexed by Google. So when someone writes a blog post, Google will index it, and then it can show up in the search results. So if I write how to live stream a podcast episode and people Google that phrase, then my link will show up, my blog post. It's very different from podcasting. Google just started indexing podcast episodes. Okay, income stream. It's very easy to create an income stream from blogging because you can use affiliate links. And those affiliate links get more clicks than podcasting, or if the links were in the podcast show notes, because this goes back to clickable links in the blog post. People are more likely to click on the links in the blog post. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is easily editable. Okay, so a blog post is easy to edit because it's just when you see an error, you can just click a button and make changes to it. With a podcast, it's more steps to set up or clean up a podcast episode. It's a lot of editing, and you need extra software to do it. Part of the reason why this podcast is unedited. Okay. Let's see. Easy setup. So to set up a blog, all you have to do is set up a WordPress account, and you're done. To set up a podcast, you need to have editing software and recording software. You need a host. You need you need to put it on iTunes or Spotify yourself. And then, yeah, it's a lot of work compared to writing. Okay, free traffic. So when you have a blog post, there are many places where you can promote that blog post, and I'll go over this, to get traffic for free. Yeah, with podcasting it's the same, but a podcast episode is very difficult to go viral. With a blog post, it's pretty easy. Many blog posts go viral. Okay. Feedback. When people read your blog post, it's easier to get feedback from those people compared to a podcast episode. So because when you post it somewhere, they can easily just say, hey, this is what I like about your blog post. This is what I don't like about your blog post. With a podcast, there are different players, and people will give you feedback on those players. So you have to know you have to check those different players to see if you've gotten feedback. Okay, how to promote your blog post. One thing I do is every time I have a blog post, I tweet out little chunks of the blog post every day on Twitter, and that way people see blog posts. I also do a tweet storm. So if I was doing this episode as a tweet storm, I would first tweet out the how to or my goals in one tweet. Then I would do the goals. Then I would do the benefits. Then I would do how to promote. Then I would do problems. Okay. Another way to promote a blog post is you can guest post. So there are platforms that will allow you to copy and paste your blog post from your blog and add it to their blog place. I forget what to call it. So yeah, that's one way to promote it. Another way is to ask places that have blogs, multiple writing people, I forget what they're called also, and you ask to add your article as a resource to their resources page. So on Reddit, I post a lot of my articles on r/podcasting. One thing I could do is I could say, hey, can you add my article to the resources page of your subreddit? And they might be willing to do that. Okay. Directories. So there are places that point you in the direction of resources. And a person, a blogger, let's use that word, can add their blog post to that directory and get traffic from those people who are looking for that resource. Okay. Link to podcast in the article. Okay. So in the article, to get more people to listen to the podcast, you can put at the very top or somewhere in the article, you can be like, hey, this blog post is originally was a podcast episode. You can listen to the podcast episode here. And that way, if people are interested in listening to the blog post, they could click on that link and maybe subscribe to your podcast. Okay. The final thing that I do to promote my blog posts are to send the article to any person or company that was mentioned in the article. So I just mentioned Overcast in the blog in the podcast episode. So I might mention Overcast in the blog post. And what I can do is I can send the blog post to Marco, who created Overcast.fm, or I can send it to the Overcast.fm Twitter page. And my hope by sending him the article is that he would share it with their Twitter followers or his Twitter followers, and that those Twitter followers would subscribe to my stuff, read my article, or whatever. Yeah, okay. Problems. One problem that you would run into with blogging is skimming. And what I mean by this is that people aren't actually reading your article, they're skimming it. And the reason why this is a problem is because they don't see the value in your article, blog post, whatever, article, blog post, and they won't be able to see the links, or they won't sign up for the email list. Okay. Another problem is plagiarism. So it's very easy for someone that wants to steal your content to steal your content with a blog post. They can easily just copy and paste everything and put it into their own editor or blog create their own blog posts from your writing. This is very different from a podcast episode where it is very difficult for someone to copy your voice and take your original episode and download it to their computer. Okay. Competition. There are millions of blogs and millions of people creating blog posts every day, and people have to filter out some blog posts or some blogs and choose which to read, and sometimes different blog posts take priority for people over yours. You're gonna have to deal with that. Yeah, just write better, and that's how you become a priority for people. Okay. Another problem is visual aspect. So what I love about podcasting is that you could listen to a podcast anywhere. I usually listen to podcasts while I'm walking around and on my commute. With a blog post, it's very difficult to read a blog post on my commute or when I'm walking around, because I have to have awareness of what's in front of me, what's behind me. And by looking at my phone and reading something, I don't have that awareness. So I have to put myself in a mindset to read something, or I have to be in a position to read something or read a blog post. And on the same occasions that I would be listening to a podcast episode, I don't have the ability to have the awareness, or to not have the awareness to read. Okay. The last problem that I have run into with writing is formatting. So on a blog post, you have to figure out how to format your writing, and sometimes it's a little different. Like I have trouble how to separate like the main points of my writing and formatting that correctly. So, for example, just this section of my podcast, problems. So I have problems in big letters, like a H, not an H2. I was gonna say header 2, and then how do I format the different points and problems? Do I italicize it? Do I just bold it? Things like that. And I don't really know how to format lists. Like if I'm listing out the different ways to, I don't know, like a steps, like how to set up Ghost on DigitalOcean. If I were to list out all the ways or the steps to do that, how would I format that? So yeah, that's a problem that I've run into. Okay, that's all I have for you. Thank you for listening. If you would like to guest post on the Open Podcast blog, come join the Telegram chat or even the forum.openpodcast.xyz, and talk to me about it, and we'll figure something out. And if you would like to host an episode of Open Podcast, the community podcast, same thing, reach out to me and we'll talk about it. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Bye.